A fatal float plane crash on Vancouver Island has raised serious questions about the safety of float planes. 4 people died on Saturday near Tofino. And now the federal government, as a result, is calling for action to improve safety standards, using everything from pop-out windows to life jackets mandatory for passengers on board. Those are just some of the suggestions from the Transportation Safety Board. Both are steps to try to save lives when a plane is sinking. Well, today, the industry answered back.
The life vests are underneath your seat. They're accessible from the front of the seat.
This is part of a safety briefing you hear when you board a West Coast or Harbour Air float plane.
Standard airline life vest.
But the Ministry of Transportation says the industry needs to do more. This is the wreckage of the float plane that crashed in the waters near Tofino last weekend, killing all 4 passengers on board. The deadly crash prompted Transport Minister John Baird to order his staff to review safety standards, how to make it easier for passengers to escape a sinking plane. Better instruction on emergency exits, windows that pop out, and whether life vests should be worn on board. For the past 16 years, the Transportation Safety Board has argued life jackets should be worn by all passengers on float planes. Harbour Air and West Coast Air operate the largest fleet of float planes in the world, and they say despite the recommendations from Transport Canada, making passengers wear mandatory life jackets is not the answer. Life jackets are kept under the seats, and that's where Greg McDougall, the CEO of Harbour Air, says they belong.
The chance for a passenger to inflate the life jacket inside the aircraft and thereby blocking exits and endangering their lives and others is, at this point, we're not convinced that that risk outweighs the risk of not having them.
McDougall says a lot of passengers will panic when they're trapped, and they'll prematurely pull the inflation cords, endangering others. He says there are different models of life preservers on the market that could work better to save passengers trapped underwater, but they can't use them because they're not approved by Transport Canada.
We're only allowed to use transport-approved equipment. So, every time something gets changed in an approval process, it's always a lengthy process.
Viking Air makes the float planes used by Harbour Air and West Coast Air. The CEO agrees that if life jackets are worn on board, they can be more dangerous than not.
You can imagine an airplane that is inverted in the water and somebody through panic while still inside the aircraft activates an inflatable device that to try and, if you have to swim down to get to an exit, it's not good.
For now, the float plane industry says prevention is key. The best way to ensure passenger safety is to fly only when conditions are ideal. In Victoria, Louise Hartland, A News.